Good evening and welcome to the May 15th meeting of the City of Des Moines Plan and Zoning Commission. I will start by reading our rules and procedures. The Plan and Zoning Commission is generally an advisory body to the City Council. The City Council will hold a public hearing and make the final decision on all matters before the Commission other than site plans and subdivision plats, unless denials or conditional approvals thereof are appealed. The applicant will be given 10 minutes to present the request. Proponents and then opponents from the public are then allowed to speak in that order, with each speaker allowed a maximum of 5 minutes. The applicant is then allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal. The hearing will then be closed and the Commission will discuss and vote on the issue. All comments are to be germane to the item under consideration and speakers are to maintain a courteous manner. Items listed on the consent portion of the agenda will not be individually discussed and will be considered for approval in accordance with the recommendation in the staff report unless an individual present or a member of the Commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately under the public hearing agenda. First order of business tonight, we'd like to welcome a new member of the Commission, John Erpelding. Welcome. We're happy to have you here. This should be a relatively short introduction for John this evening. See how that goes. First off, are there any questions from the minutes of our previous meeting, or can we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll move.
Thank you, Chris. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Any abstentions? Thank you. Motion passes. We will now move to the consent portion of the meeting. Item number 1 is a request from Bell Avenue Properties, Inc. for vacation of 2 irregular shaped segments of undeveloped right-of-way measuring approximately 2,550 square feet and 11,228 square feet in area in the vicinity of 6200 Scout Trail to allow the vacated area to be assembled and maintained for private use. Would anyone in the audience tonight like this item discussed under the public hearing? Anyone on the Commission? Item number 1 will stay on consent. Item number 2 is a request from Goliath Properties LLC for vacation of approximately 1,434 square feet of an east-west dead-end alley right-of-way in the vicinity of 1924 Capitol Avenue, which is within the block bounded by East 19th Street to the west and the Union Pacific Railroad right-of-way to the east to allow the vacated area to be assembled and maintained for private use. Would anyone in the audience like this item moved to the public hearing agenda? Anyone on the Commission? Item number 2 will stay on consent. However, the applicant has requested that this item be continued to June 26th. So when we have a motion for approval of the consent agenda, it will include moving that or continuing that item to June 26th. Thank you. Item number 3 is a city-initiated right-of-way vacation of approximately 36,000 square feet in the, of the southeast 14th Court right-of-way, which is to the north of the East Edison Avenue. Would anyone in the audience like this item discussed on the public hearing agenda? Anyone on the Commission? Okay, item number 3 will also stay on consent. Could we have a motion to move the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Todd. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Motion passes. And we will move to the public hearing agenda. Our item here, item number 4, is a request from Riverview Parking for review and approval of a public hearing site plan called Riverview Public Garage for property located at 200 East Court Avenue and for the following type 2 design alternatives. A, waive the occupied space requirement along East Court Avenue where a minimum 30-foot depth of occupied space on all full-height floors of primary frontages is required. B, allow parking within the front portion of the building along East Court Avenue where required to be located behind occupied space. C, allow 0% transparency on the ground story of the south facade where a minimum of 70% is required. And D, allows 0% transparency on the east and west facades and on the upper stories of the south facade where a minimum 18% is required. And Tanner will present this item tonight.
Good evening, everybody. Tanner Heemer for planning staff. As we heard, agenda item number 4 is a request to review and approve a public hearing site plan, as well as 4 type 2 design alternatives regarding a proposed development of a parking structure at 200 East Court Avenue. Here we can see the site of the proposed development along East Court Avenue between East 2nd Street and East 3rd Street. Currently, the site is mostly surface parking. There, in the aerial, you can see a structure to the east that has recently been removed. The proposed development would be a 2-story building containing 3.5 levels of parking, as well as 335 parking spaces. Here is the site as it currently is. This photo is looking at the site looking to the southeast. This photo is of the site looking to the northeast. And lastly, this one is looking to the northwest. You can see that structure that was visible in the aerial is no longer present on the site. These are some sheets from the submitted site plan. Here we can see the existing conditions. The western 2/3 of the site, as I said, are currently surface parking. I would also like to draw attention to the curb cuts, the drive entrances along East Court Avenue. Those are proposed to be eliminated with the development. Just a demolition plan showing removal of the existing concrete. Here is a dimension plan that shows the proposed layout of the parking on the ground story. You can see those drive entrances have been eliminated along East Court Avenue. I would also like to point out the entrances to the parking structure along East 2nd and East 3rd Streets. Here, a little hard to see with the hatching, but more visible to the west here along East 2nd Street. A grading plan here. I'm just going to flip through these pretty quick. If we do want to revisit them, it's not an issue. We can scroll on back up. Utility plan, as well as a stormwater management plan. Here is the landscape plan for the proposed development here. Just zoom in really quick. There will be some streetscape improvements with the project. Currently, there are 3 planting beds along East Court Avenue with street trees. The development proposes to add to that, more than doubling them to include 7 to 8 planting beds along East Court Avenue. Staff is also asking for them to mirror the streetscape that we find on East 2nd Street on East 3rd Street here. So the inclusion of 2 planting beds with street trees is to be expected. In addition to those planting beds, there will also be foundation plantings along each of the frontages. Just some details included with the site plan here. Here is a render provided by the applicant of the proposed structure. This view would be looking to the northwest. And then we have elevations of each facade for us to see here. The top elevation is the south elevation, which would be fronting East Court Avenue. The middle two are the east and west elevations facing East 2nd and East 3rd Streets. And the bottom is the north elevation. So I just want to touch on really quick the building type. This development is being reviewed as a downtown storefront building. While a parking structure is allowed in the DX2 district, code does require all developments along a primary street to be a downtown storefront building. So that is why we are looking at this as a downtown storefront. What has been proposed, what has been submitted to planning staff would mostly meet the requirements of a parking structure. The only thing that we see would be a deficiency is the requirement of a 3-foot screening wall, which we are addressing through review comments. It also closely conforms to what we would ask for out of a downtown storefront building. 3 areas would be slightly deficient. 2 of them are being addressed by type 2 design alternatives tonight. That would be the required occupied space along primary frontages, as well as transparency. The third is the overall building height. Code does require the downtown storefront to be a minimum of 3 stories, where this is a proposed 2 stories. If the commission does approve the type 2 design alternatives this evening, staff is prepared to approve a type 1 design alternative to allow 2 stories where the 3 are required by code. So the first 2 design alternatives are concerning occupied space. Code does require for the downtown storefront building there to be a minimum of 30 feet of occupied space along primary frontages. This, being a parking structure, characteristically does not have occupied space. The second alternative, again, closely dealing with that occupied space, while parking interior to the structure is allowed in the downtown storefront, it is required to be behind that occupied space. So again, just as a parking structure that is not present. The second 2 design alternatives are regarding transparency requirements. The structure is transparent as we see it in our day-to-day, but code does define transparency specifically as glass. So the structure does not have glass along most of its frontages. There is a bit at both the northeast and the northwest corners surrounding the stairwells, but other than that, it is open. You can see into the structure, but does not have the glass or the glazing that is required by code. Generally, staff does support the requested alternatives. While East Court Avenue is a primary street, it doesn't hold the same significance as, say, East Grand or East Locust to the East Village area. Additionally, the parking will help to support existing and future uses in the area. For that, staff does recommend approval of the public hearing site plan as well as the 4 type 2 design alternatives, subject to the compliance of with the following conditions: provision of public parking to the satisfaction of the planning and urban design administrator, as well as compliance with all administrative review comments. At this time, I'd be happy to take any questions that the commission has.
What questions do we have?
What is
question.
the, oh,
Go ahead.
thank you. What is the proposed mix of public versus private parking in this?
That is to be determined at this point. The exact mix hasn't been nailed down specifically, and there are talks about it varying between business hours and off business hours and the week.
Okay.
With the requirement for the streetscape on East, what is it, East 2nd and East 3rd, I see that there are bike parking, bike racks on the south facing East Court. Will there be a requirement for the other two streets as well?
No. The required bike parking is planned to be wholly along East Court Avenue.
So there isn't a city requirement that when you do the streetscape on the one side, you have to throw in a bike rack as well?
Well, the requirement is for the use as a whole. I guess not necessarily streetscape specific. So they are meeting those requirements or will meet the requirement to have the certain number of bike racks. As long as it's on site, we kind of do that as meeting that requirement.
I mean, I think we could look at spreading it out if that's of interest to the commission, and maybe the applicant would have ideas on that.
Laura?
I have another question. It's a twofold. One, is the Court Avenue parking edge adaptable to be converted to a different use in the future? So that's part one. Do you know that, or?
Would it be able to be converted to like an occupied use within
Yes.
the structure?
Yeah.
I would probably defer that to the applicant.
Okay.
They might have a little bit more background on that.
And then part two, when we're considering exceptions like this on a primary street, has the city considered requiring additional considerations to that particular facade, like elevated expectations of the treatment of the facade, artistic elements, or the adaptability consideration for future use?
Yeah, and I think the applicant probably speak a little better to adaptive reuse, but the ramping is all at the back, so it's flat in the fronter part. So I believe that the front part could be converted, but we'll let Doug speak to that. The approach, I mean, I think we were on the main level, I mean, we were open to kind of a mixture of landscape and fencing treatment. We were viewing, I think you have a good point. I mean, we were largely looking at this against the parking structure standards. But I think you raised a good point on maybe going above and beyond. But we didn't necessarily have anything that we had asked for or proposed at this point, but certainly be open to discussion and ideas from the commission.
I have a question. I'm curious why the city is recommending to step away from the three-story requirement, given that parking is being created here and that it has both public and private uses, and that since we're going ahead and building a parking garage, that might provide some opportunities for other buildings, right, to not have as much parking. And so I'd like to understand why the city is stepping away from the three-story requirement.
Yeah, Jason, you might be able to provide a little bit more context on that.
I think I'd like to weave that into our conversation with the applicant, because I think that it's partially being driven by their analysis of need, but I think that's a valid point.
Right, because the incremental cost of building another story of parking versus another parking structure is in the future is pretty different. I just like to understand a little bit more why, when staff is making recommendations that we step away from the code, I'd like to understand why that recommendation is in place.
I've rarely been more confused by an item before. I don't understand why the city is recommending kind of treating this like a storefront building and then not requiring any of the requirements of a storefront building and sort of reviewing it as a parking structure. Was there not another way to look at this, like a conditional use for a parking ramp on this site that would make more sense or something?
There's no other path to review this, path that we're on. So the code requires that we look at any building, regardless of use, that's going to be constructed on a mapped primary street through the lens of the storefront building type. So that's why like all the code relief is written to address those standards. For right or wrong, we are also looking at it and sharing how it jives up against what would be expected of a parking garage building type, which is another downtown building type. So I don't know if that's caused confusion.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. I'm troubled by the approach. But we can talk about that more when we get into our conversation. Any other questions for staff? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is the applicant present? Please come forward, state your name, address, and you have up to 10 minutes to present. And please sign in on that white sheet of paper after you're done.
I'm Douglas Wells. My address is 2200 Grand Avenue, Des Moines, Iowa, and we're the architects of the project. With me is Elizabeth Ritchie at the same address, and she's the project manager. And be happy to address the questions I heard, and maybe I'd start with a design overview. And if we could use this camera.
Is that the... Are you sure you're on the document camera? There we go.
So I'm going to start with several perspective images and renderings. So the idea of the architectural idea is we're using the red brick of the East Village, and the original planning idea of the East Village, one of them was the buildings along the river were limestone governmental buildings, and then everything to the east was the traditional red brick. So we're using that same red brick. We're using the traditional red brick and matching the overall brick color that's in the East Village, and it's real modular brick with the 4-inch depth dimension. And then the design along Court Avenue is done in a way that can be converted to a retail situation or commercial situation. The floor lines along Court Avenue are level, and our entry height, as you can see in this rendering, is 9 feet high. There are two solid wall sections that you can see that have some ornamental light fixtures on them with some ornamental grills over them. And those solid sections serve as to break up a long facade into more of the scale of East Village buildings. And then all along the edge of the parking structure, we have an ornamental railing that you can see some details of. The concrete surfaces all have form liners, so they have a decorative pattern. The column capitals, so you look at a section of the building, and I'll have another drawing in a minute. The section above has a certain pattern, then the spandrel unit spanning the opening has a different texture, so it breaks that up. We have pretty heavy landscaping along the edge, and not shown in this rendering are planters that would be in each opening that would block the headlights, and the planters would be a planter and a concrete stop, and that as well would have an architectural finish on it. Let's see, if we go to, I'm going to jump to kind of so this would be a view looking southeast, and to my left is the current building that ISG Engineering is in. And to get a feel for the brick columns and the spandrel units and the decorative elements along all the facades. And so we carry those materials throughout, and it picks up the coloration and the feeling of the East Village. And then on the alley, we continue, on the right you can see a decorative panel, and on the left are some vertical lines, but there's a stainless steel illumination band that extends down the alley and provides a lot of light, so it's not a dark place. So this is a night rendering, and you can see the alley illumination, and then to the right of the image there's a cornice line all around the building that picks up some of the traditional detailing of the East Village, and in the bottom of the cornice is a recessed LED strip light, but it casts a very faint light on the sidewalk. It is not bright. But one thing I think it'll be very nice about that, it will illuminate the landscaping. And then as you see the corner, that's enclosing the elevator and the stair in the northwest corner. So we thought a lot about how it's going to appear at night. We have collaborated with ISG Engineering, who's in the building to the left, and then on down there's a restaurant there, the Breakfast Club, and the owners of those buildings, and we are on the same page on how we're going to decorate and develop the alley. And then, so this is a little higher view of those elements.
Online, can't hear the word you say when you're not on the microphone.
Here's an overall view, and in this view you can see the cornice lines running around the building, kind of picking up the traditional elements, and then and that is the band where the lighting will be recessed. I wanted to address how we see the garage functioning. The garage parks in our planning approximately 335 cars. That parking is used from 8 to 5 for the tenants in the building that we own to the east, and it will be full with those users. At 5 o'clock, the arms go up, and then it's public parking in the evening, and so it'll always be available for public parking when the office tenants are not there. And in order for us to compete in the office market, we have found it necessary to provide parking, a lot of it covered, for the users of the building, and in order to attract tenants that would occupy our building. Currently, we have leased the first 2 floors of that building, and we have a letter of intent for the remaining upper floors of the building. Most of the space, there's a little space still available on the 3rd floor, and then we have space available on the 1st floor for coffee shop and bistro type of restaurant. And the building's being fitted with amenities such as exercise facilities and conference facilities. So that's kind of what's going on with the building. So the project's conceived as combined with the building. In order to make the building work, we have to have the parking, and that's what governed the size. And the comment was made, why isn't it 3 stories? Right now, the economics of building a parking garage are not sustainable. I mean, it is a significant burden on the project. The parking does not generate positive cash flow. The city's worked with us with some a TIF financing arrangement that combines both properties together to make it just barely work. And so...
Sir, your 10 minutes are up. If
Okay.
you could wrap up your thoughts, please.
Okay, thank you. And, well, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. What questions do we have for the applicant? Please.
Hi, my question is, if at some point in the future you do decide to market the Court Avenue side to possibly convert to storefront retail, have you analyzed the parking that would be available then for that future space, and would there still be sufficient parking in the garage for the retail and the other facility where you have tenants lined up?
That's an excellent question. Yes, we have. It would, obviously, if we did that, we would lose parking. There's approximately 30 cars along the very south edge, and the garage is designed to be expanded, and in that event, it would be possible to build those additional spaces. The next place the garage would be built upon would be elevationally along Court Avenue, and it would add that 3rd story. And another good question is, why don't you do it now? Economically, it's a struggle, and that would add to the struggle as we build more spaces. So we'd like more spaces and not affordable. We feel the best thing that can happen is to have the parking and get the building full and the 1st floor revitalized or energized along the river, and then we think the rest will follow course over time.
When you say not economically viable, what rate of return are you basing that off of, and what is the actual margin on this?
Okay, on the right now, after attracting the tenants and doing tenant improvements and restoring our building, the whole transaction is right at break even with the TIF financing. So right now with 2 major tenants, we have to fill the rest of the building. The project wouldn't be viable without the parking or the TIF financing. And the question is, what do you do with the building? I mean, the best thing we can do is fill it and get long-term tenants in there. And I don't know the rate of return off the top of my head. It's the financing of the project, but we are it's probably making in the range of $100,000 to $150,000 a year, and on the whole thing. And then when you want to look at it, our land for the parking garage was approximately $3 million, a little over that. The construction's in the range of $10 million, and then the renovation of the building is in the range of $15 million to $18 million, somewhere around that. And we've submitted a pro forma to the city on the TIF financing portion of it, and it's a very thin thing, but we feel the improvements over time will make sense.
Improvements will make sense based on what? I guess I'm trying to figure out, if you're just building this to break even, that sounds like a nonprofit. That doesn't seem like that. Seems like it's logical. So if you're saying that, hey, this isn't viable if we don't put in all 3 or 4 stories now, what's a metric for saying it's not viable? If you're saying I'm paying $28 million to only get 150 back a year, that also seems odd too.
Yeah, each parking stall you build loses money.
Depending on market, sure.
Yeah, and significantly loses money. And so we're building enough to attract tenants to get them to lease space in the building and with office use. And so the whole project combined together with our leases is very close to being a break-even situation. However, there's a little upside with about 13% of the spaces left in the building right now that isn't leased, and that'll take us a little bit above the break-even situation. The alternative, if you didn't do anything, the burden of just owning it is very, very difficult. I mean, you have to have tenants in the building that pay for it, and so if you track it all out, whether to do it or not, it makes more sense to obviously do the improvement.
Any further questions? Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience this evening who would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Anyone neutral or opposed?
Hi, my name is Carol Maher. I live in downtown Des Moines. This picture is a picture I took today. On the left is the office building that the applicant is rehabbing. Straight ahead is, in a 6-minute walk, is the existing parking garage owned and operated by the city. It was determined that 6 minutes is too far for tenants in this building to walk, because at the city council meeting before last, they approved the $5 million TIF agreement to build a brand-new parking garage, because that parking garage is going to be vacated next year by all the city employees. Even on a good day currently, midday, Wednesday, when it's very full, it's at 56% occupancy. Those are based on the city's own reports during budget hearings. Today, at the, again, picture taken today, at the surface lot, it has this sign about towing being enforced at all times. A little later, I'll show you where there's a pro-tow sign right there on the bottom. So I think it's important that the applicant is saying that he's going to open up the gates to allow, I guess, free parking for people to come in at all hours. I'm not sure what happens then when the guys come in the morning and the parking lot is full because you've opened up the gates and you're not charging anybody to be there. So absolutely, if you're going to build a parking garage that, in my opinion, is not needed, you shouldn't tow people from it, and you should charge people, because free parking isn't free. We all know that. So I really encourage the zoning and planning administrator, when he approves the plan for public parking, that the infrastructure to support public parking, access to it, collection of money to charge people to go there, is included in the requirements for the applicant to build, because trying to retrofit it for something besides an employee pass is expensive. So you need to build it right up front. And it was $5 million. $5 million we're paying him to build this parking garage. And we need to make sure in those requirements that it's not required to be managed by the city, because that is not an expense that the city should take on. Yay, elimination of curb cuts on Court Avenue. I will cheer that on. Thank you very much. The planting beds that the applicant has said he's going to put 8 or whatever it is on the Court Avenue side, I hope they're maintained better than the ones that are currently on the Second Avenue side, because those have a bunch of weeds and other unsightliness in them. So I believe that the requirements for any landscaping is that they're maintained in a living order or something like that. So I hope that we do require that. And then my big favorite, of course, is bike parking. 14 are required per code. There are 12 shown on the site plan. So I hope that the planning team requires them to put all 14 racks in the required type. With the crossbar. There are 3 racks today on the engineering building that was cited that are too close to the wall. You can't even park at them. This is a picture I took today. It's a little bit further out. You can see you can't even get up there to get a lock around it. So if the applicant needs assistance in knowing how to properly install bike racks, a nonprofit organization called the Street Collective will get the permits for you, and they will put them in the proper spot with the proper distances and install them for you. It's total turnkey. If you need assistance in that, I recommend them. And I like the recommendation for racks, maybe not just all along Court Avenue, because it's not clear how those are going to be oriented, and if they're put in the streetscape, it sort of does add to that sort of feel of walkability, bikeability. And I know there's something else, because I'm always bitching about stuff. The non-transparency on Court Avenue, I'm surprised to hear the applicant say that, oh yeah, we'll be able to retrofit retail in there, because they've really stepped away from that. I've been at CBOA, Urban Design Review Board, for this applicant, as well as City Council. So the story has kind of changed as to what the project has been and what was important. So I hope that we do make sure that it can be retrofitted for retail later, because it's really too bad that we don't think Court Avenue is worthy of, supporting storefront, because what it looks like today is very different from what it will look like tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Applicant, you do have up to 5 minutes for a rebuttal if you would like to address any of those concerns.
I guess as a detail with respect to bike racks, I mean, the number, we're happy to increase the number, happy to put them on all three street frontages. That seems very, very doable and easy. I do like the idea of them spread out a little more. I think it would yield better use. Regarding past presentations we've made on this, we've always maintained the design from the beginning that it would be convertible to a commercial or retail situation. And I think overarching comment on that is very important. The frontage on Court Avenue, it is not a sloped parking structure. All those floor plates are level, and which is an important characteristic in the urban situation. And we are able to, extend this building up. And I guess we think we've done a lot to make the building fit in architecturally with the cornices, the ornamentation, the railings, to make it an enhancement to the urban environment there. And I guess I would be happy to address the question.
I got two more. So I apologize for not being an architect because I don't care how anything looks. Sorry about that. But my question is, what is the parking density assuming for that building, assuming all of these spaces are dedicated to that building?
Sure. The parking density is 4 per 1,000 square feet of office use. And then the restaurant, bar, coffee shop users will have the whole parking structure in the evening to use. We have, so to answer your question, if we use 4 per 1,000 across the whole building, we're needing for our main two users 335 parking spaces right now today. And then it shifts with the other users in the evening. They're going to share the same parking, so we get that overlap. And so that's our density we're using.
Is the public parking intended to be paid?
Yes, yeah. In fact, the system's automated, and you have a parking pass, a corporate parking pass if you park there, and then its function changes. And it's real similar to parking in other garages in downtown Des Moines, and in fact, likely it'll be the same operator doing it, so it'd be in that parking system.
Did you have another question, Chris?
Yeah, what density does your model require there to be to have the office space leasable? Like, I guess, because the question earlier, Carol's point was, we do have right down the street sufficient unused capacity. Yep. What does your model say is actually needed then?
335 spaces with our two tenants.
Right, but so commercial office space, usually you'll have in a parking study, hey, X number of spaces per 1,000 square foot, what is the density, and you're saying that
For-
market needs that, so you're saying,
Net usable office space in the, so we have rentable area and usable area. 4 per 1,000 of the usable area gets us right at the 335 number.
I get that, but you're saying if it has less than 4 per 1,000 accessible, is that unrentable office?
Yes,
That's unrentable.
yes.
Oh. Okay, so if we now assume that the parking that's down the street from us, how many spaces, have we accounted for any of that? You're saying, so none of that is usable, it's too
Well-
far away?
It certainly is usable, and if you're in the lease, commercial office lease market to national tenants, with Class A space, you have to have attached adjacent parking, or you won't get a lease, or the building will just sit empty. That is just the fact. And I've owned the building for 30 years. And we have had, when the government was in there, it was fine. Once it converted to the commercial office market, and in order to get a tenant, you have to have parking for them, or you won't compete. And the choice is, the reality is, if we don't have the parking garage, those tenants, the two we have, will go to West Des Moines. We know where they'll go. We know who the competitors are, because they can rent a nice empty office building with excessive space in the office with parking adjacent, like we're providing. And we found that is the only way we could compete. And in the early stages of the marketing of the building, as we studied different options, we got no traction because there wasn't enough parking. And in fact, one of the burdens of this project with this parking is it's not attached. They want a covered skywalk. So that's where the tenant market is, and we certainly learned a lot about it as we worked through the process. But I think it's a reality of Midwest, Des Moines, Iowa, of competing, and just the sheer amount of office space that's available in the metro area. And anyway, that's how we ended up where we are today.
Thank you. Okay, I will close the public hearing and open it up to the commission for discussion and motions.
I'll move staff.
Any discussion on the motion?
I'm opposed of allowing for it to be under the requirement for the height that we're requiring anyway. If we're going to say we're going to need this, I support a few million square feet I support a few million square feet. Granted, it's not in this market. The park at 2.6, the idea that there's an absolute on the value of parking relative to the amenities around, I guess I have a challenge with, but I don't work in this market very often, so I can't say that's truth. I'm just saying absolutes are usually never true. And I do think I don't know why we would not require the build now, because if we're going to do it later while it's actually full, if we're saying that's operationally feasible and taking out all the use of this thing when you're at the height of occupancy, that sounds like that's not operationally reasonable. So the whole story doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm opposed to moving staff in this case for this item, but that doesn't mean I have a better plan. I apologize because I haven't put the work out on it. I agree with the process seems odd. It's what it sort of theoretically needs, based on numbers we don't actually really know of what the return is. I have a hard time believing these are nonprofit activities. So there's way too many open questions for me to be supportive, but I don't have a better alternative to say, I know this is not it. I'm just saying this isn't something I'd support.
And I guess I'd like to say that, first of all, I really appreciate the effort put into making it attractive parking garage that fits in the context. It's clear that there was a lot of intention towards that work, and I appreciate that. I'm not crazy that there was a lot of TIF money that went towards a parking garage, quite honestly. I know that's not for us to consider, that's already happened. But I do think that the allocation of TIF money speaks to a need for a nod towards the public. And if we do indeed need parking in this location, which it seems like there's some disagreement about that, I would like to see the 3 stories happen. I think that at some point, there's something that needs to be given back. And I do know that while developers often have really good intentions about what's going to happen in the future, none of us know how things are going to pencil out in 2 months, let alone 2 years, let alone 10 years. And so while I hear the concerns about the feasibility of adding financially in terms of adding another story, I would like also, I'm agreeing with Chris, that dimension of the code, I'd like to see us honor that and maintain the 3 stories.
I'm going to just share that. I think there's a lack of vision here. We've got the courthouse just north of this. We've got the police building just south of this. And it sounds like the building itself is being designed for the capacity of the one building, whereas we can take advantage of everything else that's going on right next to this location. If we're going to put money, city dollars into this building, then we at least have to comply with the 3 stories just to fulfill the need for just that area. In addition, we've been talking about parking for this adjacent market district in the last couple of meetings, so it's just a testament to, if the parking is needed and we're putting money into this structure as a city, then we should expect to meet a demand that goes beyond the use that's being proposed for the one building. So we've got future redevelopment of the sites that are adjacent to this location. And what does that mean for the city in the long term? Are we going to add another parking once the courthouse comes in? We're going to add another parking structure for that building. I know it has some, probably not enough. Are we going to add another parking structure for the police building that's just south of this? It's just some of the questions that I think could have gone into this project when we were putting those dollars into it, and say, well, let's increase the capacity of this if the need is truly there.
And I'll just add that I think that the waiver of the requirement for occupied space along Court Avenue is a mistake. I think Court Avenue is important for the civic life of this part of the city. And I think that waiving that, as we have done on other recent projects, is a mistake. All of that said, do you have something more?
I have just a quick question. Contradict me if I'm wrong. Structurally, the building is capable of holding another 3rd story. Is that not correct? Yeah, thank you.
But if you don't put it down, if you don't put it in now, where's all that parking needed at the time you have to put it on? I mean, you're essentially going to take it out of use for a while you put on this 3rd story after we fill up a building that we should be expecting to fill, and we're building it with public dollars. Public dollars should see public good. Why would we take this offline if we're saying this is so vital to have now? Are these tenants not going to be pissed when they don't have the garage for 8 months, 12 months while we're putting the thing on? That just, it makes no operational sense.
Okay, we do have a motion.
Chairwoman, if I may, I'd like to make a comment, or it's actually a question, a point of clarification. I know I'm new, but are we as a commission able to consider type 1. My understanding was that the building height is a type 1 design alternative, not the type 2 that's for our consideration, but I'd just like to clarify if that is something.
Right, yeah, that's not before the commission.
Okay. Since I'm speaking, I guess I would state that based on the type 2 design alternatives that we are to consider, I appreciate the additional architectural renderings that were provided for us tonight. I think that helped. Compared to what we were sent previously, it really showed me that there's a lot more architectural detailing occurring. I trust that the applicant will continue to work with staff to make sure that there's enhanced elements, that we have good architectural detailing and lighting, landscaping. And the massing of the building, I think, fits in. It's not the whole structure isn't 3 stories, but backside is, and there's flexibility built into this. So I support the motion that we have.
If I could just add a few comments. I will commend city staff, probably who aren't here. They're going to great lengths to try to fill the parking structures in the East Village that'll soon be empty, with helping the brokers negotiate deals for some of those parking lots and parking garages that are within a reasonable walking distance. So I think as a group, we need to keep that in mind. And, the eternal optimist in me is that the market district's going to take off in our lifetime. And there currently are, and there will be parking demands down there that the developers are just not going to be able to meet, on their own. To add the 3rd story to this today, the money's got to come from somewhere. I don't think the applicant has it. I don't think the city has it. I do think that allowing for it to happen in the future, which is, let's face it, it's never going to happen in the future. Nor is converting the first floor to commercial office or commercial space ever going to happen. But that said, I think that I'd rather have the building occupied, activated, and everything, and allow to make that happen. The parking's got to happen, so I support the motion.
Okay, let's take a vote on the motion, which is to move staff. All in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Are there any committee or directors' reports tonight?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.